We all know how bizarre life was in Victorian times, strange traditions, peculiar fancies. And to sum it up, there couldn't be a more easier time to accidentally depart from life. Here are some of the most peculiar ways Victorians have died. Killed by a mouse. Factories in Victorian England were not hygienic places. Mills in particular attracted many pests. So it really shouldn't have been that big of a surprise when a mouse ran across the desk of a young factory woman in 1875. But perhaps the girl was surprised because she let out a piercing scream, and one of her colleagues rushed to her aid. He managed to catch the mouse, but it soon swung out of his hand and disappeared into his sleeve. The brave young man gasped in surprise when the mouse suddenly reappeared from under his collar, and seeing a dark hole to hide itself, immediately jumped into his mouth and down his throat. The Manchester Evening News reported that a mouse can exist for a considerable time without much air. The mouse began to tear and bite inside the man's throat and chest, and the result was that the unfortunate fellow died after a little time in horrible agony. Killed by eating hair. Doctors were perplexed with a seriously ill patient, but they couldn't understand why. A 30-year-old woman died in a village in Lincolnshire, England. They asked her grieving relatives for permission to do a post-mortem. Whatever they thought they'd find, it couldn't be what they actually found. A 2-pound solid hair looking like a very long-necked black duck. The Liverpool Daily Post in 1869 said this remarkable concretion caused the stomach to thicken and ulcerate, and was the remote cause of her death. On inquest, the nurse stated that she had known the deceased for the last 12 years to be in the habit of eating her own hair. Killed as a zombie.
Finish him. Fatality.
The funeral was in full swing when the coffin lid lifted and the body began to climb out. Needless to say, this was an unexpected turn of events. White with fear, the priest and the mourners ran from the church in their Russian village and dispersed to their homes, locking their doors. The ghost raced after them, breaking into the house of an old woman who wasn't very good with her lock. When the priest gathered his senses, he realized that the raging corpse was actually a comatose patient who had regained consciousness. The peasants of his parish lost their nerve and armed themselves with guns and stakes and proceeded to perform exorcisms. By the time the priest arrived, the zombie had been successfully moved back to the other side and the body dumped in the swamp. Torn to pieces by cats. Stereotypical old ladies get cats seeking companionship and fun, and they are rewarded with an occasional tease of selfish love. It's cute, so they get another one.
Another one.
Soon the house will catch the eyes of visitors. People stop calling, the old lady grows out her hair and suddenly begins creepily muttering about. In 1870, Iran, a rich, eccentric lady happily embarked on such a path, breeding and buying cats to her taste, spending her days with her pleasant or smelly fur balls. Then, disaster struck. A fire broke out and swept through the house, trapping the cats behind the door. 2 young women were sent to free them, but the wild animals were confused by the fire. As soon as the door was opened, they flew at the unfortunate girls, furiously tearing, scratching, and biting them. Their injuries were so severe that they both died. Killed by a drunken bear. Quick quiz. You're offered a bear as a pet. Do you A. turn it down, or B. accept it? And while you're at it, you might as well teach it to drink too. Because that is exactly what went on with a man in Russia in 1891. The bear was big but tame, and it liked the taste of vodka. One day it rushed into the village inn and grabbed a flag. The owner of the tavern, Isaac Rabinovich, resisted and tried to take it back. To say it was a mistake would be an understatement. In the chaotic scene that followed, the animal furiously hugged the innkeeper to death and did the same to his 2 sons and daughter. The villagers found the drunken animal sleeping on the floor in a pool of blood and alcohol with its victims all around him. The bear was immediately shot. The man who swallowed a billiard ball. Unfortunately, the Victorians didn't have a monopoly on stupid people, and drunks behaved just the way they do today. But in an age when people had to have fun, some found more room to do ridiculous things. Take for example Walter Cowell from London. In 1893, while enjoying the evening, he bet his friends that he could put a billiard ball in his mouth and close his lips around it. At a later inquest, the landlord of the Carlisle Arms pub stated that when he gave Cowell a pool ball, he thought he didn't actually put the ball in his mouth, but appeared to use his hand to do so. For some reason, perhaps having something to do with the large number of drinks offered by the innkeeper, Cowell put the ball in his mouth, whereupon he immediately began to choke. Both his drinking partner and the landlord tried to remove the pool ball, even holding Cowell upside down and slapping him on the back, but to no avail. Although his friends said they had seen Cowell do the trick several times, the bar owner had nothing else to say about it, and of course, Cowell, too. Crushed by his own invention. Sam Wardle couldn't afford to oversleep. He was a lamplighter in Flatbush, New York in the mid-1880s. He turned on the streetlights in the evening and had to wake up early to turn them off again at dawn. This was not the work of idlers. So, with the boundless ingenuity of his age, he arrived at a suitable safe mode. He took an ordinary alarm clock and loaded it with Wallace and Gromit-style decorations to make sure he woke up on time. First, he attached the clock to a latch on a shelf in his room with a thread. He then placed a 10-kilogram stone on the shelf. When the alarm went off, the shelf fell and the rock hit the floor. Ta-da! It worked great and might have continued to do so if Wardle hadn't played with the setup. On Christmas Eve, he invited his friends to a party and cleared his room of furniture to make room. When they left, he pulled his bed back into his room. He was tired and didn't pay much attention to where he put it. The alarm clock rang the next morning at 5 a.m. The shelf fell, and the rock fell directly on the sleeping Wardle's head. What do you think? Which was the most bizarre Victorian death? And if you have a story of your own, comment down in the section below. And if you've made it to the end of this video, chances are you may have liked it. If so, then you should check out this video on the strange things that Victorians did on our channel. You know you want to.